Yeah, so I was writing a post last night, and I realized that kind of what I really wanted to be able to demonstrate what I was talking about was the kind of concrete use cases, was concrete, like for people, how do they use this on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah.
I think that's often the struggle, isn't it? You know, it's that generic feel of facing ChatGPT and saying, I know you're useful, I know you're a Ferrari, but I just don't really know
how
can I do it? So I thought, let me go in, and I played around a bit with chat, a bit with Claude, and actually came up with some quite good ideas, I think, which kind of makes you sort of think a little bit more about what sort of things that you could do with it. And I'm just going to have a look and say, so first of all, I wanted very basic little posts. And then I thought, actually, you know, there's masses in here which could really help a lot of people, just kind of like with that prompt. You know, just like we've got in Atheni, our use cases are kind of like our starting point.
Yeah, it's example, isn't it? It's like a jumping off point. And if you get one thing, you know, when somebody says, oh, you know, you can actually just upload this transcription from your meeting notes app and you can upload it to a project area, then once you've got that once, then you can kind of replicate it across lots of different environments, can't you? But it's like, it's that jumping off point.
Exactly. And there are some things that are just that everybody needs to do.
Everyone can use
initiative stuff. Everyone can use it. It doesn't matter what your job is. And there's other things that it really matters what your job is, and therefore what you're going to do.
Yeah, it's more specific.
And, you know, we really want to be that jumping off point. So I was thinking about how can we kind of like put those together. So so it was kind of little examples like this. Was one which was the client pitch nudge. She was prepping for a client meeting. Normally she'd scan emails, update slides, and move on. But Atheni nudged. Want to summarize the client's key messages from their last deck? 45 minutes saved, one very impressed client. It's not about using AI, it's about using it well. And I think it's little things like that.
Yeah.
Want to help drafting a prompt for your internal comms piece, want to turn this into a slide headline or add speaker notes, want to summarize your meeting notes into a one-pager.
Yeah.
You know, it's things like that, which I think, you know, with Atheni, that's what we're doing. We're prompting people to not have to think about that. And I think that's really powerful.
And I think if we can also just home in on these kinds of ones that are just really replicatable, like the biggest one for me that I feel like everybody can use, because everybody goes to meetings, everybody talks to people who are knowledgeable, right? So if you're sitting there talking to your, like we do all the time, you know, you have a meeting about, I don't know, a client, or you have a meeting about a presentation that's coming up, or you have a meeting about a pitch you're doing, or whatever else. It's like you talk and you have all these ideas in the conversation, but then there's always this like enormous chunk of work that you have to do afterwards in writing up, you know, what you've done and actually produce the thing. But like, I think one of the most impactful ones is just taking those transcripts from the meeting and then saying, you know, give me a starter piece, give me a draft of this presentation that we were talking about. You know, if we were having a meeting about a presentation that we're going to do for a client, or a pitch that we're going to do for a client, is just to say, okay, take everything that we've talked about and give me an outline of what this pitch might look like, given everything that we talked about in the meeting. And, you know, it's not asking it to do the job for you, but just to give you that sheet, you know, like in an A4 sheet, what did we basically cover in this meeting? And what would be a suggested kind of 12 slide deck that we could just get started with? What's on each slide? And I mean, even that is just enough to like get over that initial hump of the enormous amount of work of like, you know, reviewing the meeting, making that first draft. And then once you've got a first draft, it's so much easier to be able to change it and add in what you want and say, no, I don't like that, but I want to change it like this. So I think it's just that like initial step. And that goes for like any meeting. It goes for any meeting you've had, right? It could be a brainstorming meeting about ideas. It could be like sales avenues that you might take. It could be like, you know, reviewing your team dynamics. It could be anything really, but just taking that and saying, distill it down for me.
And it's saving stuff that you perhaps might not think is important.
Yeah, you forgot, you missed.
Yeah, so you haven't written down, or you're in the middle of making a point and you've missed, you know, you've missed that. So we don't all have kind of mega memories. So actually just having it as part of your memory. And I've recently used it where there's been a course of a couple of meetings, and then I've written a proposal, or then so you've gathered up all the information, put it into a project area. Okay, these are the conversations that I've had. Here's a proposal that I've written on something quite similar, not the same, but quite similar. This is how I want it to. These are the sort of nuances that I want to make sure come through. These are the messages that I'm feeling. Could you review? Could you consider? Could you think about that and come up with a structure for the proposal? And then it's a backwards and forwards, and it's this iterating, this kind of playing with it that I absolutely love, because it's like having a partner. It's like having someone. It's like me and you talking about it all the time, but I'm not wasting
whenever you like, right?
But whenever I like. So, and by the time I got to the proposal, and let's be sure, I have probably done, you know, that proposal in 40 minutes, not in 4 hours or half a day, or a day or whatever. I'm then, you know, I've tweaked it and I've fine-tuned it to make sure it's really my proposal. It's not AI's proposal. I've used AI to gather the information, to go out and make sure that what I'm doing, and to test it as well. I love that feeling of it being tested.
Do me a few different versions, and then we'll talk about which versions are the best.
If you were I don't know, we're pitching to VCs at the moment, but if you were a VC, how would you see this? How amazing
Yeah, and if you were this kind of VC, which one would you prefer? If you were this kind of VC, which one would you prefer? So you can just like that whole scenario analysis type thing. But I think that was a really good point as well, the whole kind of taking lots of meetings. So my simple example is we take a meeting and then we take a transcript and then we say, turn this into a draft presentation. But I think also what's really mega powerful is when you can take lots of different meetings or lots of different sources. So like for a client meeting, like say you're putting a proposal together for a client, for example, if we have the meeting with the client where we've actually had the meeting, we've got the transcript from that. So they've described what it is they're looking for, what do they want to achieve with this project, whatever else. And then we have a meeting internally about what we think we can offer them, about how to go about it, our whole approach, our way of looking at it away from the client. So that's another meeting. And then separate to that, you've got like, what are we trying to achieve as a business on the whole, like in the longer term? And then bringing that all together, like synthesizing all of that and saying, take into account the client's position, which we have from that meeting, take into account our views that we had from our internal meeting afterwards, take into account like our long-term vision or our strategy in this space, and then pull that all together and then give me the draft. And it's like being able to synthesize all of that is just like super powerful.
Over weeks and over months. So
then it compiles like the project areas.
You put it in a project area. So then you also can develop a monthly report. I think back to my PR days, the first part of my PR days was writing monthly reports. Oh my God, going back and going through emails and all of the rest of it. What have we done?
It just sucks up time, doesn't it? Just remembering where you were with things.
Yeah, and just actually be able to say everything is saved in there, everything that we've done, even taking a photo of my notes and uploading it. So I've got in the project area the whole thing. So
amazing. Cool. Or like the whiteboard that you were drawing on during the meeting and stuff, and just all of that. And actually, there's some really powerful stuff around. I haven't tested this out yet, but like tools that are looking at meeting dynamics as well. So if you've videoed the video call and stuff, looking at like when people got bored, or when they weren't really paying attention, or the bits that actually grabbed their attention. And if you can grab that and synthesize it over time, oh my gosh, it'd be so powerful. It's amazing.
And I think that's it. Many people don't realize that it doesn't have to be doing it for you. It doesn't have to be kind of like, it's not AI.
It's not task replacement.
It's not
exactly.
it's just doing something that couldn't be done before, which is gathering all of that information and putting it into whichever shape or form that you'd like to have. And that is just that in itself could not be done unless you spend hours and weeks and months doing it.
And you wouldn't bouldn't is the thing.
Like, a press of a button, right, now give me a proposal that focuses more on events, or one that focuses more on thought leadership. So you can kind of literally twist and change it and also kind of, as you say, pick up the sentiment as well. As you're going through with
like who talked too much in a meeting, or who wasn't talking enough, or which were the ideas that came out. It's like and I think actually formatting is a really key one as well. That's like an overlooked, really simple way to use AI, actually, that everybody kind of just I don't think everyone realized that it's just right there. There, all of that. I think it was a VC? I'm not sure who was looking. I think it was a VC who had basically used it to just take all of the financial models that they had received. They'd received all of these like financial projections or whatever for lots of different, but they all came in different formats. And so they basically just uploaded all of them to Chat or all of them to Claude and said, put them in the same format just so I can easily compare. And, that saves so many hours of looking at all of these differently formatted spreadsheets. Instead, you've got them all in exactly the same format, so you can compare and contrast super easily. So it's not really about like AI doing your work. It's just making it so much easier for you to do your job.
Yeah. And also at that point as well, it kind of takes away the bias as well. Because, when I think about it with pitch decks or something like that, is I would much rather that someone uploaded our pitch, our deck, to an AI powered analysis, make sure, that they were using the whole world as their kind of benchmark. And everything, and not just one person on one afternoon. I'm thinking
Might
about
be really moody on the Friday afternoon, right?
There's one VC that we contacted last year, and we are literally perfect for them. So I'm going back to, but we sent it off. It was an afternoon. It was before perhaps the problem that we're addressing was more. But it's like that's gone. Exactly. So I'd much rather that what they'd done had gone into a system and been saved, and then they could get it to flag when they suddenly were looking at this area or something.
And that's actually a massive danger too, isn't it? Because if people are using AI to kind of to review things, like if we take that example and you're reviewing pitch decks through it, if you haven't configured your AI properly and you're just uploading these things and saying which is the best opportunity, AI inherently, if it's naked AI and it isn't configured properly, is going to be looking back on past performances to identify like the winning pitch deck or whatever. But actually there's an enormous amount of bias in that. So your female founders, your diverse founders, they're all going to be they're going to have a less chance of success, and they're going to be filtered out. And obviously that is not what people want for the most part. So it's like so important to get that configuration right, because actually if you can have a frontline filter on pitch decks, for example, and this can obviously be used across different applications, but for pitch decks, if you configure it properly and say these are our values and this is what we want to achieve, and we want want to have, we have a DE&I policy, and we have like an ethical investment, and you upload that all to your filter, then you're going to have a much more, it's going to be much more aligned with where you want your business to go, and you're not going to be filtering out in a really biased way. But I think that's a key point that a lot of people don't get. Like, you actually have to configure it. You can't just use naked ChatGPT or Claude. It's just
I would bet that 1% of people, or even less, are actually setting up theirs. Yes, there are some, they've set some internal ones up. But actually on a day-to-day basis, most people don't understand. It's kind of almost for me like the biggest misunderstanding, that you don't have to sound like AI, you can sound like you. And I've been writing for 30 years, right? That's what my job has been. And I have configured my tools to sound just like me. Nobody would.
But the thing is, it is you, and this is what I think is so. The ethical thing is just, it totally falls down, because I think that we had this like very simplistic idea that if it was written by AI, then it's cheating, and it's like, it's not written by AI. Like, my project areas are totally configured with everything I've ever written, right? So it's got my articles, it's got my newsletters that I've written, and then when I go into it and give it 10 bullet points and say turn this into a 500-word article, it is using, first of all, my bullet points, so it's my ideas of what goes into that article, and then also it's using my style, so it's based on all the articles I've ever written. So of course it comes out sounding like me, and really it is me. It's not written by AI.
No, exactly. And that's exactly the point, which I think once people understand that, and that's when they've signed up for Atheni, they've been through that configuration or setup process, which is that set of questions they receive back hopefully soon on the platform, where they can just copy and paste it into their AI. Then suddenly it turns around and you get that nudge, and you get that response, and you get that person, or that it's not a person, it feels like a person. You get that support mechanism as well. I find myself increasingly going to it to ask.
I could live with that shit.
To ask, I'm off to, I'm traveling, I'm going with my son tomorrow to, Tom and I are going to New York. It's done my whole itinerary.
Oh my gosh, I know, it's amazing.
How to get in from the airport, what the best options are, how much it's going to cost.
I said, good pizza along the way.
I know, we want to eat tomorrow night. So it's giving me 3 options within a 10-minute walk. I mean, that at the press of a button, right?
Oh, talking of amazing things. Sorry, just on that one. I meant to tell you this actually, because I went for a run yesterday, and I've been like kind of, I've been sick, so I'm still not feeling great. So I went out for a run and I just was not feeling it at all. And I had ChatGPT on the voice thing. And I was like, I'm not feeling it. Can you give me like I don't know, some sort of a circuit workout I can do? Because now I'm in the park, but I just don't feel like carrying on my run now. So can you give me a little workout to do? And I often do that. It just gives me a little like HIIT workout or something. But this time I was like, how about you can just talk me through it actually? Because I'm not really feeling it. So can you just like be quite energetic and motivational, and also like count me down? So it came up with the workout, but then I was like, but I want to do like 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off. And so it was like, okay, we're ready, 5 4 3 2 1 kind of thing, and then we're ready for our jump squats kind of thing. So it was talking me through it, and it was like, okay, 1 2, good form, keep your tummy tight, all this kind of stuff that the personal trainer kind of stuff would be doing. But it took me through the whole 20-minute workout, and it was just so, I haven't used it like that before, so that's why I was like, it's amazing.
That's brilliant. I myself sometimes to get out and go for my walk. So I love those moments where you find something else, you just think, oh my god, that's so amazing. It's so helpful. I've had it, checking the weather for me in New York, so I can figure out what to take.
What's packed,
and and kind of like ideas. And then I've said, and this sounds really silly, and but I always overpack. I always overpack, because I'm somebody.
Me too.
Prepared, always. I like to be prepared just in case.
And I like to have options.
I like to have options. But you know what? It's given me. It said, right, you want this is what and I'm like, I don't have to think about it today, because today I'm a lot on. I'm going up to London. I'm out in the evening.
I need to get it right. I
need to get it right. And I don't want, and it's going to be really hot on Saturday and really rainy on Monday. So it's like, how do I get it right? So, I love it.
It is, but I think that getting to know you thing is just so powerful. Like now, when I talk to, I find it hard to relate to people who don't have personalized ChatGPT or Claude anymore, because I'm like, how do you live? All of the Claude being completely personalized and ChatGPT being completely personalized, for me, it's like, it just saves so much time, because it knows everything. It can come back and be like, okay, I understand what's going on. It knows I've got kids. It knows I'm pressed for time. It knows all of these things. But then on top of that, it knows, what we're trying to achieve at Atheni, where we're going, all that kind of stuff. But I think that configuration thing is the important stuff. So I had someone, I think we were on LinkedIn or something, and someone was like, but what does it actually do, the configuration? And I think this is where we have to, maybe through our content and stuff, we have to kind of lay out exactly what that configuration actually does. And I think the main thing, when I was thinking about this earlier, and I think the main thing that it does is like, for me, it's the difference between being reactive and proactive. For me, that's like everything. So when you go to ChatGPT, if it doesn't have any configuration, it's just the normal thing. It's saying, how can I help you today? But actually, that is the biggest barrier for people. I don't know how you can help me. So tell me. And, it's got a few of the suggestions, but they're all really generic, and they don't really, they're not that good. And I think the biggest difference is when you use the Atheni configuration, the first thing it does is make it like completely proactive.
Yeah,
so all you have to do, that for me, the biggest thing is like, even when sometimes when I'm feeling like totally overwhelmed at the beginning of a workday, I just go on and I do that. I just say hi. And then it comes back and it says, what are you working on today? What are you hoping to achieve? You know, what tasks are on your plate? How are you feeling about it all? Are you, you know, there's some that you're not really looking forward to, some that you are looking forward to. So it starts to ask me questions rather than the other way around. And that's just enough to get started on it, which I feel like that just changes everything. And then the other two things that I think are major are so it suggests use cases back. So as part of that, it's like, I can help you with this. So if you tell me a bit about your tasks that you're doing today, here are some bits that I can help with. So I can help you draft this. I can help you with, you know, a day plan, a work plan. I can help you draft the first presentation. So it's suggesting to you rather than the other way around, which I think is definitely the right way to go. And then the literacy stuff. So for me, that's massive as well. Yeah, it's good, isn't it? Yeah, the tips and stuff. It keeps coming back with tips. And actually, you know, we live and breathe this stuff every day, but there's still loads of stuff that it comes up with where I'm like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. You're right. You could help me with that. It's so good. Like, yeah, it's recently ChatGPT has been asking me if I want voice notes that I can listen to, which I think are brilliant. So it gives me like, you know, brainstorming or whatever. And then it says, would you like me to summarize this in a voice note so that you can listen to it on your commute, or so that you can listen to it on your run or whatever, and just like recap on everything that we've talked about. I'm like, yes, please. Yes, I would like that.
Yes, I think that's great. And I think it's because, and it's one of the things I talked about on Tuesday when I was at that conference, which is, you know, this isn't the way that things have ever been done before.
Yeah.
So it's very hard for people, unless you've experienced it, to kind of understand what this means. And that's the biggest blocker right now. It's not not what we're doing. It's obvious. We can see it. People who like Atheni can see it. But it's other people who think that you learn in a certain way. You learn on a course, you learn, you go to, you know, you do, that's how you, whereas because we've set this up in a way which means it is teaching you effectively in your workflow, all you have to do is go to your ChatGPT.
Yeah.